We're in budget time here, crunch time for the budget. It's going to be finalized in the next couple days, and mostly what I hear about are spending priorities, which is appropriate for a budget, and I've heard some new ideas from the governor and others on different ways that we can assess taxes, mostly their tax shifts, changing who will pay the tax burden. What I don't hear anything about is spending and how we're going to get spending under control. Let's face it, we have a high tax burden because we spend a lot. Florida, the state of Florida now has a bigger population than New York, and their state budget is half of ours. So how can we compete with a state that has more people and half the budget size? And by having half the budget size, they're able to have no personal income tax in Florida, which is one of the reasons that New Yorkers and others from around the country are flocking to Florida. Also, about a quarter of our budget is Medicaid, which is health care coverage for the poor. And I think all reasonable people believe that if somebody is poor and has a health problem, they should be taken care of, and it's kind of our common duty to do that. But we have the most expensive Medicaid program in the country. We pay more for Medicaid per person than the state of Florida and Texas combined. And Texas is another state which is significantly bigger than the state of New York. One of the things we do that few other states do is we allow non-citizens to collect Medicaid. And the federal government doesn't like that. So whereas when a citizen is covered by Medicaid, the state pays half and the federal government matches. When a non-citizen does it, in the rare case of New York, New Yorkers pay both halves. They pay the whole thing with no federal match. So that's 25% of our budget. If we can even marginally reduce the size of our Medicaid bill by fixing those kinds of things, we give Medicaid covers sex change operations here in New York State. Okay, and then you have middle class people who've paid into the system their whole lives, have been productive. They get sick at some point in their lives, and they have a stroke or they have a brain aneurysm, and they own a house and they saved a little bit of money because they've been doing the right thing, and they're not eligible for Medicaid to get physical therapy and things like that. So we're very generous to people that we don't have to cover. But then when you have real hardcore New Yorkers who are the backbone, middle-class people, backbone of our society, they're left out of this entity which takes up a quarter of our budget. So those are the things that we really need to talk about, spending, and also baseline budgeting. We just start with, hey, every agency wants what they got last year plus more. How about we look at all these agencies on a yearly basis and say, okay, what do you need? Now justify what you need. Because I think we'll find through technological efficiencies, through shared services, by looking for waste and fraud and abuse, we can shrink some of those budgets and shrink the spending burden, which leads to the tax burden. So spending is the problem. Taxation is sort of how the spending problem manifests itself, but it's spending, and we have to get at that root cause of spending.